Superfoods are just given the name superfoods because they're either exotic or because they're inflated with marketing propaganda. That being said, a lot of superfoods have good properties. We just need to find different options because they're usually super expensive. So this video is all about the 10 superfoods that I feel are just overrated. It doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean you should avoid them. Not at all. It just means find an alternative because you don't need to be spending a bunch of money on them, or you can have them in moderation. Please do hit that red subscribe button that's down there in the bottom right-hand corner of this video, and then hit that little bell icon to turn on notifications so you never ever miss a beat. Now, remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm just some guy on the internet. This is for informational purposes only. I just know a little bit of biochemistry and I like to share it with the world. Number one is gonna be agave. Is agave a terrible, terrible thing that we should avoid 100% of the time? No, but it's not a superfood. Okay, agave is primarily fructose, and then when it goes through its processing to become, well, packaged agave, it's even more concentrated. Fructose metabolizes differently within the body, and if we have it in high amounts, it's basically like having high fructose corn syrup. It goes to the liver and it gets turned into triglycerides relatively easy, and here's what happens. If you have an excess of triglycerides as a result of having so much fructose, it can ultimately make you insulin resistant. It can impair insulin signaling. So agave is not a superfood. It's a sweetener that, quite frankly, doesn't make a lot of sense when you have all kinds of other sweeteners that you could use. You may want to just consider using monk fruit, or consider using stevia, or heck, even consider using honey, because at least honey isn't as adulterated as agave is. Next up is going to be almond milk. Is almond milk bad? No, I use it probably every day. It's not a superfood though. Okay, it's in the health food section a lot of times like it's this just glorified, amazing superfood that's gonna heal everything. Almond milk is less nutrient dense than regular milk, and I don't recommend having regular milk in place of it, but the point is, any vitamins and minerals that are in almond milk, it's been fortified with. When you make almond milk, you strip it of everything. You're left with like a little bit of pulp and some water. So not a lot of vitamins and minerals. So if it's rich in calcium or high in vitamin D, it's not naturally, it's fortified, which makes it the opposite of a superfood. It's a frankenfood. Then we have acai berries. Kind of falls into the same category that I talked about at the very beginning of this video with my intro. If it was the only berry on earth, it'd be great. But acai berries have a very similar profile to blueberries. So why would you go pay $18 a pound for acai berries when you can go pay, I don't know, $1.99 or even $2.99 or whatever for good quality organic blueberries? Probably not per pound, but still. Acai berries are good. They taste good, but they're marketed as a superfood when they're in an acai bowl alongside a bunch of glutinous grains, alongside a bunch of sugar, and alongside a bunch of other fruit that's probably loading up to about 90 grams of carbs. No amount of superfood hack could correct that issue. So save your money, go for blueberries. I love chocolate. I eat the heck out of chocolate. I really do. Like I eat probably 1 to 2 ounces of chocolate a day of unsweetened baking cocoa. Like I eat chocolate. But raw fermented chocolate is not a superfood. Okay, chocolate itself is a superfood. Find good regular roasted cocoa, fine chocolate, but raw cocoa has some issues if you have too much of it. You see, what happens is when you ferment cocoa, if you're not gonna cook it, if you're not gonna roast it, and you ferment it, it releases what are called mycotoxins. Okay, mycotoxins can have a bunch of different nervous system responses in the body. They're not good. They're not good to have a bunch of. Roasting decreases the mycotoxin content by 40%. So to have cocoa be raw and a superfood that you can charge more money for just doesn't make sense. It's less advantageous than having a roasted cocoa, but you're paying a premium because it's raw. They did less work, it's less good for you, so they get to charge you more? That doesn't make sense. By the way, a lot of the alternatives to things that I'm talking about, if you want to check out Thrive Market down below, they're an online membership-based grocery store. Highly, highly, highly recommend you check them out because a lot of the things that really are superfoods, which are things that aren't labeled as superfoods, you can generally find on Thrive. So I use them for all my keto staples. I use them for my pantry staples. My pantry is just loaded up with stuff that I get from Thrive. They're a big supporter of this channel and they are a huge bargain. Generally speaking, you can get your goods from Thrive delivered to your doorstep for less than what you're gonna find at most grocery stores. Highly, highly, highly recommend you check them out. Please, 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 there's a special link down below in the description after this video. You're not going to regret it. There's some awesome stuff there. And I have my keto boxes, my fasting boxes, all kinds of cool stuff there, so check them out. The next superfood that's not really a superfood is a weird one. It's pomegranate juice. Okay, you see those little bottles of it where they try to sell it for like $9-10 for a little shot of pomegranate juice. Trust me, this is not worth it. It's pure sugar. Let's just move on to the next one. Okay, wheatgrass. Wheatgrass, not the end of the world. Does it have some benefits? Yeah, it has some chlorophyll. There's actually some pretty decent evidence on chlorophyll as far as just helping the liver out, helping the body out. So I'm not like thinking that it's this terrible thing, but I don't like it when we see that wheatgrass is going to replace all your vegetables, or wheatgrass is going to replace having a salad. It's not the same. A, you're not getting the fiber. You're stripped of a lot of the real nutrients because that's coming out with the pulp. And you're still left with trace amounts of specific proteins that can cause what is called a prolamin response within the body. So people that are highly sensitive to gluten, whether it's through celiac or other issues, they can still have a negative response with wheatgrass. I know this for myself personally. I don't have wheatgrass agreeing with me very well. If I have a shot of wheatgrass, I'm bloated and I feel very brain foggy, and I've talked to many people that feel that way too. Does that mean that it's terrible? No, it just means it's not for everybody, but it's certainly not to replace good whole foods. It's not a superfood. It's just the juice of some grass. Then we move into goji berries. I love those little suckers. I think they taste good, but first of all, they're still rich in sugar, so if you overdo it, you're really running into a problem. But second of all, it's the same thing as the acai berries. They have the same kind of antioxidants, same anthocyanins that you're gonna get in like blackberries and blueberries. Why not go for the cheaper one? Why spend a bunch? And here's the thing, goji berries got so trendy there for a while, they decided to over-farm the heck out of them, and that required a bunch of pesticides. So now the bulk of the goji berries that you get, unless they're organic and you're paying literally like $30 to $40 a pound for them, is gonna have a bunch of pesticides on them. So it's just not worth it. Just go blueberries, go blackberries, grow your own. This next one, I can almost promise someone's gonna take a little clip of me saying this and make a video about me and probably try to like twist my words. Chia seeds. Chia seeds are awesome. Let me go on record by saying this. Okay, alpha-linoleic acid, good amount of omega-3, still high in omega-6, but you're not supposed to overdo them. That's the issue. Chia seeds aren't a superfood. They're cheap, they're easy to get your hands on, and they're effective, but they're not a superfood. Yes, they're high in soluble fiber. They draw water into the colon, but that's also the problem. If you have more than 1 or 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, you're creating a gelatinous-like substance in your gut that is inhibiting you from absorbing nutrients, it's inhibiting the absorption of minerals, and it can cause a negative action and actually set you back. So yes, use chia, blend it up, make chia pudding, do this stuff, but you don't need to have a bunch of it. It's certainly not a superfood. I usually say just a couple times per week is fine. Anyhow, I digress. One of my favorites, quinoa. Quinoa is low glycemic. That's about it. Okay. There's a study that was published in the journal Molecules that found that quinoa has such a high saponin count that it actually affects the cell membrane in some ways. So basically what it does is it has what is called a membranolytic action against the cells that are in the small intestine. That means that it affects your small intestine, can actually trigger some inflammation there, making it so you're not absorbing as much in the way of the nutrients, but it also can cause irritation within the gut. That, coupled with the fact that quinoa is super high in phytates, phytic acid, it's really a gastric upset, like no pun intended. It causes some serious issues. There's no surprise that a lot of people that have quinoa end up bloated and very uncomfortable. Quite frankly, again, my own anecdotal experience, I stay away from quinoa because I feel like garbage for 2 or 3 days afterwards. That's pretty weird. Now, that's just me, but when we start looking at the membranolytic activity and what's happening inside the gut, I think there's better grains to go with. I would go with teff if you were gonna go with a grain, or maybe some form of buckwheat or something like that. Just ditch the quinoa, it's not a superfood. It's cheap, it's easy, it's just got a premium price tag on it because it's a superfood. And the last one to make the list is going to be raw spinach. I put spinach in my eggs. Does that mean that I'm a complete hypocrite? No, I cook the spinach, or I cook the spinach in my eggs. Why? Because it breaks down what are called oxalates. Raw spinach is rich in oxalic acid. Okay, that creates, just like phytic acid, sort of a barrier for minerals and nutrients to get in through the gut. Because what happens is it chelates to those minerals. Okay, it's a heavy chelating agent. So oxalic acid or oxalates end up chelating to minerals like magnesium, to potassium, all kinds of things, making it so they can't absorb through the intestinal wall and you pass them through. Definitely not a superfood. It's more like a super anti-food, if you want to call it that. Anyway, make sure you keep it locked in. Don't forget to check out Thrive Market down below in the description, and I'll see you tomorrow.